Welcome back, everyone. My name is Sam.
And I'm Melissa.
I was raised in a family with 4 moms and 35 kids. We were members of the FLDS Church, which is a polygamist group run by their prophet Warren Jeffs, who is now serving a life sentence in prison.
I was raised mainstream LDS in Utah. Sam and I have been married for 11 years and have 2 awesome kiddos.
Yes, we do. We are back with episode 6 of Scientology and the Aftermath, season 1, I should add,
Yes.
with Leah Remini.
Yes, this episode is all about Mark and Claire Headley, which is awesome because we did an interview with Claire a couple weeks ago. We'll leave a link above to that interview if you have not already seen it. And we hadn't seen this episode before meeting and talking with Claire, which I love because we heard a little bit of her story, but this story was a lot more about Mark, actually, and his experience in the Sea Org and what he was doing for David Miscavige. So I still feel like we learned a lot of new stuff. And it was also just cool to see Claire because she was so wonderful and so sweet and so kind. It was so fun having her on and getting to talk to her. So it was like,
Yes,
I know her.
Yeah, and it's also fun to see how when different people are interviewing the same person, a completely different side of the story can come out just based on the
100%.
questions that are asked. So there were things, like you said, that we thought, oh, wow, that's something that we didn't even get to. And same thing with us. There were things we talked about that weren't talked about in the show. So it was cool to see the 2 different perspectives.
Yeah, the main thing they were talking about is the productions of these huge meetings that Scientology has where everybody, or events I should call them, where everybody gets dressed up. And Mark Headley was saying that he was in charge of, basically ended up becoming in charge of, and was a major producer for these Golden Era Productions, which was the production company for Scientology. They're the ones who made all the ads. And he was talking about the fact that when they go and they're getting ready for these big events, he said, you know, people are thinking that it's statistics, but really it's one large advertisement.
Well, and unfortunately for the members going, it sounds like that a lot of these quote-unquote statistics are completely fabricated. They are not actually accurate, or at least they are blown out of proportion to seem like things are much better within than they actually are. So to see and hear that Mark talk about this, and he was right-hand man of David Miscavige. There seems to be a lot of those that work directly for David, but he was way up there and running these big productions, and they would send these things to David and say, hey, can you approve this? Does this sound good? And it sounds like David was often saying, oh, actually make it sound better than this even.
Yeah, and I think this is a good opportunity to really see from the perspective of Leah Remini, because she was an actress, right? And she was a bigger name in Scientology and was obviously putting in a lot of money. And she was talking about the fact that these events really helped strengthen, I know they don't use the word faith, but I can't help it, really strengthen her faith and like her belief that they were doing something good. And she was talking about the fact that they would go to these events and it was just a huge motivator to keep giving more money, to keep being involved. If you had questions or doubts, it was just really like building up this, oh my gosh, we're clearing the planet. Look at all the good that's being done, all of those type of things. So for all of the other people who weren't in the Sea Org that are going and attending these events and they are contributing monetarily and by going and doing the auditing and stuff, this had to have been this really exciting thing to be like, oh my gosh, look at all the things that are happening.
Yeah, and a lot of organizations, a lot of churches, a lot of companies do these types of things where there's the yearly company sales meeting trip, or the yearly there's and churches do it as well. Even the mainstream LDS church does
General conferences.
two general conferences a year where they go and they talk about statistics. They talk about all of these uplifting topics and talks for the members to encourage them to be obedient, to continue on, to be motivated, and continue on with the work. So very similar, and I couldn't help but sit back and think, this is the same thing that they do for big companies and corporations, where they have these big meetings to pump everybody up. Let's get excited to keep, moving forward with this company. In my case, I've been to many sales meetings to keep selling, and so it just, to me, it seemed very similar to one of those company meetings.
Yeah, one of the things that was in one of the videos they showed where he was talking about the fact they always say like they're the fastest growing religion in the world. And I caught myself a couple episodes back, I don't know, it was within this last month, I said something about the fact that the mainstream LDS that I grew up in was the fastest growing religion in the world. And I said that, and it was funny because I was doing the editing later and I was like, I wonder if we really, like if they really are, or if that's just something that I had constantly been told and that I believe. And so I went and searched and it's not.
Really?
Yeah, it's not. And I was like, oh, okay. I just kind of found a blind spot in myself that because I had been always hearing those statistics and about how much growth there is and all these huge growth spurts and the percentages and the millions of converts and all these things, I had also thought that about my group, right? So I'm looking at that and being like, oh, and they're being told that in this group. And so anyway, I'm sorry for giving misinformation before, but like I said, it helped me recognize a blind spot in the things that I had been told. And I don't think the LDS Church ever worded it like that, like we're the fastest growing church, but it was always like this implied, because we have the missionaries out there and there are so many converts and you hear the statistics of how many baptisms there were, it was like, whoa, I don't know anybody around me that there's converts the same way, you know? So it was more of like an implied thing.
Yeah, and I served a mission for the mainstream LDS Church, and I 100% assumed that we were the ones doing the greatest work. We were the ones doing the biggest, the most amount, the everything was the biggest. I mean, we would come across other missionaries like Jehovah's Witnesses, for example.
Yeah.
And I mean, I feel bad to say this now because I think very differently, but in those moments, it was almost like pity for them. Like, oh, you know, if only they had what I have and they were teaching the truth like I am, you know, their lives could be so much better.
Yeah,
But
or maybe they'd get more converts like you guys did, right?
Yeah, but it's just the mentality because you're so excited and you're being told about how important this work is. And this goes back to Scientology, where that was all it was. Leah Remini mentioned multiple times that if someone, I think actually it was Mike that said this specifically, that if someone was starting to falter, that going to these meetings was really all it took to get them back excited to be in Scientology, to be going to work every day and putting their whole life and money into it because they thought it was so valuable and important for the human race.
Yeah. And he also talked about the fact that if more people had known that that so many of those statistics were made up, that would be a huge deal breaker for a lot of people. If they found out that that was a complete lie and a fabrication, then there would be a lot of upset people because of how much stock they were putting into those statistics, right? And obviously, it definitely hurt Mark Headley's, again, I keep wanting to use the word faith, but his belief in the system and in David Miscavige when he started going and visiting all these new buildings. And he was talking about the fact that when they kept mentioning growth, they weren't meaning members, they were meaning square footage. And they were buying assets and they were buying these buildings. And he said he would go to these buildings, which you assume if they're opening up all these new buildings, it must mean that there's members to fill it. But there wasn't.
That would be the idea, right?
That would be the idea, the hope for them, right? And he said he would go and they'd be completely empty. But they had to use their money in order to maintain their nonprofit status, right?
Be considered a church and not have to pay taxes. They had to spend their money on something, which real estate is a very popular one of those things to do, is investment, to buy up a bunch of real estate because, hey, we're growing the church. And if it's a church building, then, you know, what's the government going to say to that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so, yeah, Mark mentioned that he went to multiple different of these locations, multiple different times, just in case it happened to be a fluke and that there was no one there on that specific day. And did he say no one was there or just very few people at these?
He made it sound like they were almost completely empty. Like
Yeah.
if there were some people there, it was very, very few.
Yeah, but
Which obviously played a huge role in him wanting to leave. He talked about the fact that David Miscavige had attacked him, but contrary. And it's so interesting that every person has different reactions to things. And we've talked a lot from a bunch of different groups where, you know, abuses can happen for a long time. And it seems so logical that someone would stand up to David Miscavige. But even Mike Rinder talked about the fact that there was a lot of fear, right? So you could be bigger than him, but you would fear what he was going to do, or you felt like he was the leader. And then there's people like Mark, where that was his final straw, where he, David's coming after him. He sizes up to go and defend himself and gets taken down by security guards. And he said that's when he knew, like, I am done. Like, I see the lies. I know the lies. He's going to, like, if David Miscavige is going to try to beat me up, like, I'm done, right? So it's so different for every person what their final straw is and where they draw the line of, okay, I cannot excuse something like being physically beat up for. Right. I don't even remember what he said it was, but
there, like you said though, Melissa, everyone takes the same experience and handles it very differently, because there have been many other people and many other groups out there where they have been physically beaten and abused for years, and still hung on to that belief. They didn't want to deny it. I mean, I think of how strong my mother is in her faith of the FLDS church, and I don't think anything would shake her at this point that I can think of right now just on top of my mind as far as just earthly things.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have to be a vision, God coming himself and saying, hey, this is false, for her to even question it. And even then she might say, oh, that was probably some bad dream. But she's very convinced.
But you just never know either, because everybody has some kind of breaking point in them and you never know what it is. And sometimes people hide it even more if they're scared that someone's going to find out. If they think they're going to be ratted out for that, for that weak point of, hey, if this happened, I might no longer believe. You're going to keep that to yourself. Even Mark talked about the fact that he couldn't tell his feelings to Claire because she was ratting him out. He's like, yeah, she had ratted me out before for things that I had said. Wife. And that was his own wife, right?
Yeah.
And so it's easy to think that there's not a chance that they would ever leave their current belief system, but you just never know what might be that trigger, or might be that last straw, or might be in their hearts that just nobody knows about.
No, that's very true. That's very, very true. And I would hope that everyone would have that point where they would say, okay, enough is enough.
Yeah.
I was just pointing out that some of these people that we have discussed on here before have gone through a whole lot, and in some cases are still in, or go through a whole lot before they finally break. And I hope that as more and more people talk about these things, people are able to come to the realization before physical abuse, before more bad things happen, and that they can learn and do some digging themselves to find out if what they are in is actually good.
Yeah, absolutely. When Mark decided that he was going to leave, he was like, I'm not going to be here and attacked. And he ended up planning his escape. His escape was crazy. Claire had shared a little bit of it with us before, but the fact that he left on a motorcycle, was immediately followed. They ran him off the road. Thank goodness somebody called the police. And he even mentioned, though, that when the police got to him, he was like, oh, that was just some buddies trying to ask me a question. So even though he was willing to leave, he still wasn't willing to rat out people that were could have killed him on the road.
And it was brought up that part of that was because he did still have a wife in, and knew that anything that he did against the organization could potentially be more detrimental to her. So I can understand that, trying to protect his loved one still in the church.
Him just being like, I just want out. I don't really care. Speaking of people following people, though, the show itself, Leah Remini, the aftermath, it is crazy how in this episode in particular, where they went to go talk to Mark and Claire, the PIs that were following them, and they were just catching them left and right. They're like, we get to the airport, there's people following us. They got to their hotel, there were people waiting there for them. And I love that Leah Remini was like, we took pictures and I can find out who they are too. And she's like, I found out who they were.
Yep. Which company they were with. Yeah.
Yeah. And all of that. So, but it's just crazy how they're figuring this out. And you could hear the producers being like, how do they know we're here? And Mike Rinder, who this used to be his job, right, is to shut down the suppressive people. He's like, well, they can find out from, our flight information. Is that legal? No. But they do it, right? So he knows all their tactics, and that's why it's so obvious to him. And I think he's so easily able to pick it out because that was his job before, was to help facilitate that. But it's crazy.
how far they go just to spy on the people that leave. I mean, man, I can't imagine what that would be like, because when I left the FLDS that I know of, at least I never saw anyone spying on me.
Yeah.
It was more like trying to avoid me at all costs. You know, so it was the opposite.
Yeah.
If they saw me coming, they would run. You know, very, very different experience. So it's interesting how the Scientologists have taken it to an extreme in trying to just, I mean, what do you think the ultimate purpose is?
I don't know if they're just trying to gather information. That's what I wonder too. I'm like, what are these PIs like supposed to gain, or what is David Miscavige gaining from these PIs saying they went and talked to Mark and Claire? Okay, well, they already know what Mark and Claire know. Like, are they trying to like listen into conversations to see what's going to be on the TV show? Like, I don't understand what the goal is there.
I honestly wonder if it's all just about simply a fear tactic.
Oh,
Trying to make them say, hey, we got eyes on you, so you better be careful what you say. You better be careful what you do.
yeah, intimidation.
And if it comes against or goes against the church or Scientology, then just know we will know.
Yeah.
So it's got to be just a fear tactic of some kind.
Yeah, well, I mean, they know that there's lawsuits, right? That they try to sue people. And they talked about quickly in this that Mark and Claire had filed lawsuits against Scientology. And so I know there's obviously legal battles, and sometimes with legal stuff you can end up with PIs, but it's definitely pretty intense with the watching and the tracking of people after they leave Scientology, for sure.
Right, right. So yeah, it's interesting. And once again, in this show here, they have camera guys. They have like a whole slew of people filming and going along with them. And they would, for example, at the hotel, the moment they rolled in, the PIs were pulling their phone up and videoing. I mean, it just, once again, unless it's just simply to try to make them afraid that, oh, people are watching you, I don't understand what good it's going to do to have a film, to be filming someone that is literally going to be putting this out to the public anyways. Like, oh, we get the first sneak peek. Ooh.
Yeah, just wait 6 months. You'll see it all over. It'll be fine.
Yeah, I don't know. It's very odd. But Scientology, as we are finding out, is very odd.
Yeah.
In many, many ways. I mean, there was so much we didn't know about Scientology. We had heard about it.
Yeah.
And, oh, famous people go and do this. And sometimes they jump on top of tables and act crazy. That's about as much as I knew. Seriously, that's
I
about
knew
all
like aliens, like, oh, they believe in aliens, something or other,
Yeah.
and that was about it. But when people do leave, like Mark and Claire, you know, it was cute to see the fact that obviously they were both able to escape, be together. I thought it was adorable that they talked about that after 13 years of marriage, Claire made him food, and Mark was like, I didn't know you could cook, because they'd been in the Sea Org for so long and had like meals cooked for them the entire time. And so just getting to be able to have a normal life. Obviously, it is hard to have family that's still in. He talked about the fact that, I can't remember which family member it was, said it would risk all the world's future eternity for us to talk to them as suppressive persons or suppressive people. So it's still so hard when family members, that disconnection is obviously the hardest part, honestly, probably of it all. I mean, physical abuse, all the different types of abuses are awful, but the long-lasting effects of the disconnection of family and feeling like having family members truly believe that talking to them could end the whole world's eternal, I want to use salvation. I'm so only used to our words, but could ruin the whole world's future.
Yeah, well, I know that feeling. As far as, you know, loved ones and family not wanting to talk to you because maybe not the whole world's future, but the family's eternity at least.
Yeah.
And the church's eternity. So, yeah, I know that feeling. Can you imagine? I mean, because they were married for 13 years before they left.
13 years, yeah.
So that's longer than we've been married by a couple of years.
Can you
And
imagine?
can you imagine not even knowing each other to the point that, oh, you can cook? Like simple things like that.
wild.
Like it just is mind-blowing that they were married at all within this organization that kept them so apart and so separated from each other, to the point where, I mean, they didn't know basically anything about each other.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing that they're still married and that they're still
That they
doing
worked
well
it
and
out.
had
Yeah.
kids and
Yeah.
all the things, which is awesome. So
Yeah.
glad that they are able to lead a happy life now, and they obviously continue to do so much good for people who are leaving Scientology. We will leave the link below to their organization as well. But I think we have a couple more episodes in this season. We'll be almost through season 1 here, coming soon. I think it'll be just in time to get going on Sister Wives season 20. Can y'all believe
back.
that we're doing season 20 of this?
Wow.
It's going to be wild. So stay tuned for that as well.
Yes. Thank you all so much for being here with us again, and we look forward to talking with you soon.
Talk to y'all soon.